When's Lawful Wednesday? Is that tomorrow or? All right, I'm done. I think so. Let me look at my calendar. Good. Ashman will remember. I'm sure he will. Yeah, it's not a food opportunity to get him. Yeah, which is good. We're well fed. But I guess yeah.
Vice Mayor Harris. Councilmember Boomgarden.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale. Here. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. For the invocation this evening, we have Elder Ken Cunningham from Cornerstone Church from Yuba City. And we will stand for that, and we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance will be provided by Councilmember Boomgarden.
So let us pray. Our gracious God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for the dedication and courage of these public servants gathered tonight to conduct the business of this city. Bless them, for they have a desire to help our community where there is great need and potential, but resources are limited. May they find unity in their purpose for service as well as in their response to the challenges we face in Yuba City. May their deliberations be characterized with honesty and charity towards one another. May you give them the wisdom and insight they need to govern judiciously. May you empower them in their discussion and in the decisions they make tonight. Help them to act with clarity and conviction for what is good and right. Through their God-given authority, may their governance serve the common good and promote the well-being and flourishing of our community. Bless them and our city, we humbly ask. In the name of Jesus, the wellspring of every good and perfect gift, from whom all blessings flow. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. So for our ceremonial presentations, it looks like we're going to have to move number one to possibly the next city council meeting because Marni Sanders is not in attendance this evening. Moving on to public communication, number two, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other item within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitted written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. We do have a speaker card from Cash Gill. Oh, I'm sorry. That's on item number 12. Okay, so back on the public comment. Do we have any comments from the public at this point, at this time? Any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to that time. Council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual actions. Do we have any comments from the public on consent calendar items 3 through 9? Any public comments? 3 through 9. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do think there was some discussion back here about item 6. Did you want some clarification on that, ma'am? We can pull it and talk about it. Okay. Let's pull that one and we can discuss it.
Okay. So we're pulling consent calendar number 6 from consent, moving it to business. Any other comments from the public on consent items 3 through 9? Any other further comments? Okay, bring it to council for action.
Move to accept 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9 consent calendar.
I've got a motion from Council Member Pasquale
Second.
and a second from Council Member Boomgarden. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Okay. So we're going to move number 6 to the first item on the business. Okay, so it looks like transfer of city property, Harder Marketplace.
Yeah, so I don't have a visual for everybody, but it really what it is this is a procedural requirement for the frontage road at the northwest corner of Harder Parkway and Highway 20. So there's an abandoned road frontage. So when you first turn off the highway going northbound on Harder Parkway, if you look to the left, there's an old road right away right there that's on the left. That used to be the frontage road that would connect to the west. And so as part of the Harder specific plan and the development that's pending, so there's three 2 subdivision maps and a tentative parcel map there for the west side of Harder Parkway. And so there's development that's taking place with the Harder Marketplace that the staff has received a use permit to move forward with that parcel map. And then also with the subdivision, DR Horton's moving forward with the subdivision. And so as part of the Harder specific plan and the ultimate layout for that area, that old road frontage right away along the fence there, northwest corner of Highway 20 and Harder Parkway is being, we're authorizing the Public Works Director to sign the necessary documents to transfer that property to participate with the map. And so what we want to do is we want to combine that area into the parcel map. So then it combines with the ultimate layout. And then with the recording of the final map, then they will dedicate the new road that will then come north and up and around and come out where the existing signal's at. So hopefully that explained it where we could be followed, but let me know. I can be happy to answer any questions about it.
Any further questions from the council? Okay. Any action from the council?
Mr. Mayor, if I,
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, before we finish the motion, could we send this matter out to the public for comment?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further public comment on consent calendar item number 6?
Oh, okay. Good evening. My name is Sharon Foote, and I reside on Thomas Drive in Yuba City. On number 6, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what property you're giving away. When I was on the Parks Commission, we had looked at part of that parcel there for a park. And at the time, the farm owner did not want to sell it to us at a reasonable price. Matter of fact, he really didn't want to sell it as he planned to develop the property into housing. So I'm still trying to figure out where I'm thinking and where exactly is you're giving this property away. And
I think we're going to pull it up on a map. Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to pull up.
We're gonna pull that up on a map right now, so maybe it's a little bit clearer.
Brad was our designated leader when I was on the Parks Commission.
So if we follow this area, this is Highway 20, east and west, Harder Parkway to the north. And so this is the old road right of way that we're talking about.
Is that where the street swirls around and comes around to go to the housing that's in that area?
So just to the east of that. So the street right now comes along and then turns north hard right here. And so this is the old where it's abandoned right now.
Why wouldn't you keep some of that for the current park that you're putting in there on down further?
So ultimately, we want a road width that goes north, that meets city standards, that comes to the north and it comes out to the designated area. And the park is farther north.
I realize the park is down further, but when we were talking about it on the commission, we were talking about that particular parcel as one that we would like to have in a park. But I gathered that's changed, obviously. But
yeah, I really think this is really road
the
frontage.
parcel would be a good addition to the park. And I just don't like the idea of just giving this parcel to someone who wants to do some development. Sell it to him. Giving it to him, I question that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would just add to make sure that the easements are kept for the public utility easements, and then the road, it's transferred with the dedications. It's part of the development agreement with the property where there was credits taken into effect.
Any further public comment on consent calendar item number 6? Any further comments? Any comments, questions from the council on consent item number 6?
No, sure.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
Item number 6 on the consent calendar, transfer of city property, Harder Marketplace. Adopt the resolution declaring the property described under resolution numbers 05-086 as being exempt under the Surplus Land Act and authorizing the public works director to execute all documents necessary to transfer real property interest in said property to the owner of the adjacent parcel to the north, APN 62-310-016, No address or AP is available consistent of the former North Calusa frontage road between proposed Harbor Marketplace and Harbor Parkway.
Second.
So I've got a motion, a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Moving to business item number 10, DWR 2022 Urban Community Drought Relief Grant Program, presented by Kathy Willis. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here to present, this is Kathy Willis, Environmental Compliance Manager, and I'm here to present our Community Drought Relief Grant Program application. So as background, ongoing drought conditions have required water suppliers to intensify conservation efforts. The state is now focused on reducing outdoor water use by commercial, industrial, and institutional customers. And future legislation is likely to require these customers to convert non-functional turf, so grass that's not used for recreation and that sort of thing, to low water uses. But the Department of Water Resources has created grant programs for local agencies for water conservation efforts. So the current year water outlook, the drought status remains while weather effects and snowpack levels are analyzed. Staff continues to monitor water supply, and we're waiting for the state's determination. Staff will return to the council in April with a full water outlook update. Under this grant, there are 3 projects. The first is city-owned property turf replacement, and this gives us a chance to set the example for water-efficient landscaping for non-functional turf conversion. The second category is commercial and industrial turf replacement, and this will help to mitigate the financial burden to businesses for turf conversions. And the third category is every drop counts rebate and education program expansion. And this allows us to expand our current water conservation, education, and outreach rebate programs. So we have 6 city properties that are identified for replacement of the non-functional turf. The turf will be replaced with low and moderate water use plants, and walkways will be of decomposed granite or other permeable materials. We anticipate substantial water savings, and ball fields, play areas, and grass used for recreational activities will not be converted. So the 6 city sites that we've identified are City Hall, the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, Holly Tree Park, Kingwood Park, and Shanghai Garden Park. So we've done this kind of work at Goshi Aquatic Park, and you can see it does not give you a desert. And we will, anyway. So on the turf replacement program, you can have a rebate. We'll have rebates of up to $5 per square foot of turf converted, and it will be awarded on a first come, first served basis. In the Every Drop Counts program expansion, we'll expand our water conservation, education, outreach, and rebate programs. And our expanded offerings may include new rebate offers, multimedia education materials, and in-person outreach. The grant proposal itself, it's a $3.1 million proposal. $2.5 million will be city-owned property turf replacement projects. $500,000 will be the commercial property turf replacement rebate program. And $100,000 will be the Every Drop Counts rebate and education program expansion. We've applied as a disadvantaged community to eliminate the 25% local match And if we do not receive that, if we don't qualify for that match, then we will not move forward with this project. We're recommending that the council adopt a resolution authorizing the Public Works Director to accept and execute all the documents associated with these grant applications. And A, B, and C are each the individual projects that I just mentioned. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any comments from the public? Well, thank you for that very thorough presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from the council? Councilman, please go ahead.
I saw that you have Kingwood Park. I grew up in that neighborhood, and I know there were a lot of good leaguers, soccer players, and such. Are you going to eliminate all of the grass at Kingwood Park?
No, any grass that's used for those kinds of programs, recreational activities. Right.
Okay. Any questions?
No questions, comments through the mayor. Appreciate staff's looking into this grant. Is this competitive? It sounds like it is.
Yes.
How do you think we're placed?
Well, this is the same program through which we got the ASR funding last year. So for that reason alone, I mean, if they were trying to spread the money further, the state, then we've had a crack at it. But otherwise, I think it's, I mean, in my opinion, it's a good project and it should be competitive.
Excellent. Thank you. No questions.
Okay. Yes, thorough presentation. I'm glad that we're leading by example on this. In California nowadays, water seems to be very unpredictable. So thank you for doing this. So bring this to council for any action.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to move forward with a motion to approve items A, B, and C as provided in the staff report.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Moving along to agenda item number 11, abandoned railroad corridor feasibility study adoption. And this will be presented by Josh Wolf.
Sorry. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here tonight to present to you the Abandoned Railroad Corridor Feasibility Study Adoption. I'm actually very excited for this project. I'm here tonight with Eric Espinoza, Senior Engineer from Dock and Engineering, and the Project Manager for this project as well. So to give a little bit of background, the Abandoned Railroad Corridor that goes through town starts in the town of Sutter and then moves easterly over to about Jefferson Avenue, Hooper Road. And then we're currently working on a project to extend that project or extend the bike path to DRS Baines Park and then Hart Parkway. So the purpose of this study was to look at the abandoned railroad corridor portions that have not been built out yet and are not owned by the city. That's from Hart Parkway here, going diagonally southeast through the city down to Clark Avenue, where it kind of levels out and then connects to Plumas Street. So a little bit of background on this project. In 2019, the city applied for a Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Sustainable Communities Grant to secure funding for the feasibility study for this project. In June of 2020, the city was notified that it was awarded $200,000 for the study. Then in November of 2020, the city entered into an agreement with Caltrans to secure the funding. In September of 2021, the city issued an RFP for the study development. And then in December of 2021, the city council awarded a professional services agreement to Dock and Engineering of Folsom, California for the study. So throughout 2022, Dock and performed outreach. They had audited the abandoned railroad corridors right of way, its physical conditions, its environmental conditions to see if a project was feasible, and if so, what alternatives would be the most feasible alternatives for the project. Through that process, Dockin determined that yes, the project is feasible, and there are two major alternatives. Alternative one would be a 18-foot wide path with 12 feet of the path being an asphalt concrete or AC path for bicyclists, and then a 6-foot wide sidewalk or a concrete sidewalk for pedestrians. This alternative was chosen with a lot of input from the public, just expressing a lot of conflicts between bicycle riders, pedestrians on the current path that's only 8 foot wide. One reason we decided that this option was the more feasible alternative was having a concrete path is a clear delineation in color. So it's easy to tell pedestrians over here, cyclists over here. Also, it's lower maintenance over time compared to asphalt. And then down below, we just have the alternative two, which is an 18-foot wide AC path. So there are a few large components to this ultimate project for the city. One of the larger components of this project is an overcrossing that would be necessary at Stabler Lane and State Route 99 crossing. You could see here is the first crossing at Stabler Lane. Here's another crossing at 99. And then in between we have some raised concrete here, or raised concrete bridge all the way through and carrying you over. Eric will get into a little bit more of the details on this later in the presentation. Second major crossing was at State Route 99. Right here, you have West Onstadt Road, the Best Western, Northside Fitness over here, and then some of the dealerships over here. One thing I'd like to point out about this area in particular was Dockin was cognizant of future development through the city while doing the study. Part of that being the future Civic Center Boulevard extension, where you have Civic Center Boulevard extending where it currently ends at U-Haul and the 76 station, coming down southeast and then extending and connecting into West Onstadt Boulevard. So that was considered, and the alignment was made such that it has minimal right-of-way needed outside of the railroad corridor to cross here. Some of the other important things through the study were safety components for the trail. I have a few different examples of that here. On the top left, you have what are called bulb outs. This is just an aerial view example from the city of Sacramento. The bulb outs allow the pedestrian crossings to become closer and also act as somewhat of a bottleneck to drivers and a traffic calming measure to slow vehicles down. Another one that's going to be big on large or high volume, high traffic intersections are what are called high intensity activated beacons or hawk signals. They're more or less traffic signals except for pedestrian crossings. So at high stress locations like Clark Avenue, Gray Avenue, these work pretty well to make drivers aware of pedestrians crossing. Other components that may be included would be rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We have these at various locations in town, such as Franklin Road, in between Harding and North Walton Avenue. Pedestrian refuge islands, allowing pedestrians to safely cross and stop if need be in the middle of the intersection. Lastly, one of the biggest things is we want to make this trail not only connect throughout the city, but also connect into Marysville at some point. So once the railroad corridor terminates at Plumas Street, Dockin analyzed 8 different alternatives for connecting the end of the bike path to the Feather River Levee Trail and then ultimately to the 5th Street Bridge. Through that, the preferred alternative from community input, analysis of stress levels for riders and cost came down to Plumas. Once you enter Plumas Street going south until you hit B Street, and then riding B Street to the Feather River Levee Trail near the old courthouse. This alternative was low cost, really easy to retrofit to make the riders and pedestrians safe and comfortable while riding through town. Another item that will come up later in design are potential trail amenities. We got a lot of great input from the public on this. Some potential items that could be included in the construction would be periodic benches along the trail so that people can sit and relax after walking a while. Trash enclosures to ensure that the trail is clean, low maintenance landscaping. Bike fix-it stations would be nice in case you run into a flat tire or any issues. This is actually a picture from DRS Baines Park, one of the models we're using there. Fitness nodes for doing workout circuits along the trail. Shade trees that are low maintenance and low water. Solar lighting, and then water fountains along the trail at certain points. So for the fiscal impact, the city was awarded $200,000 for the feasibility study. The city was required to pay $25,912 for a local match. Staff is, now that the study is complete, staff is working to close out the project with Caltrans and seek final reimbursement. After closeout, there will be no direct costs associated any further and no costs associated with adopting the study. So through the study, we determined that the total project cost from start to finish will be $70 million. Preliminary, so we broke it into 5 different phases. Preliminary engineering being about $7,032,000. Right-of-way and acquisition being about $7,766,400. Environmental and remediation being about $8,055,000. Construction being the largest portion at $50,218,500. And then construction support being $7,553,300. Just for note, the environmental and remediation right-of-way and acquisition costs, there is to be further environmental analysis done on certain portions of the project, so that could affect cost for remediation and for acquisition. But luckily, right now, there's a lot of funding available for active transportation and trails types projects. I've just highlighted 4 major programs that we will likely leverage this feasibility study to apply for projects if we do adopt this study, one of which being Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant, CMAQ. We actually use that on the Franklin Avenue project in 2020. The Active Transportation Program, which we're currently using on the Sutter Bike Path Gap Closure Project, Regional Trails Program through the State Department of Parks and Recreation, and then the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. All funding sources that we can apply to this project. So that is kind of the overview of this project, and to get into a little bit more detail on how we conducted the feasibility study, I'm going to hand this off to Eric Espinosa.
Thank you, Josh, and good evening, Mayor and council members. As Josh said, I'll go a little bit more into some of the details, but Josh did a great job on summarizing the overall scope and the findings, as well as the conclusion on our estimate. I'll start off with some of the design considerations that the team considered. One of them being the existing corridor width. Currently, UPR owns 80 feet wide corridor, and let's see, there's a pointer. Yep. Corridor from fence to fence. So this particular example here is a picture taken of Tharp Road and facing east, and you can see that the corridor has no longer any railroads, but there's several overhead utilities. and some trees already, but overall a clear path for providing that width on the alternative one, which is that 12-foot plus 6-foot pedestrian sidewalk. So the 18-foot path fitting within the existing UPR right of way. Another design consideration is that connections to adjacent facilities. So not only to connections to streets, existing sidewalks, but also to other amenities along the city, such as the skate park, and as well as connection to some of the businesses that have access to their outdoor seating or outdoor lunch areas where the bike path can lead to. So those were connections that were accounted for creating an alignment and connections to existing adjacent facilities. At the three intersections that Josh mentioned, which are Stabler Lane, Highway 20, and Highway 99, grade separated crossings were accounted for, looked into to provide a separated crossing from for pedestrians, so they don't need to cross the multi-lane high volume traffic roads. So at those particular three intersections, overcrossings and undercrossings were looked into. Here we have a couple examples of what potential overcrossings can look like with two-span structures or a single-span structure, depending on the span of the crossing. There's several benefits. So these overcrossings, obviously, they're the safety component, given that there's less conflict or crossings for pedestrians and bicyclists at the intersections. But then the alignments that we looked into considered that right-of-way, adjacent right-of-way, and keeping the alignment as best as possible within the available space, as well as meeting necessary clearances under these structures for traffic, as well as sight distance for bicyclists and pedestrians as they're going up on the vertical profile of the alignment. So those are some of the overcrossing examples. There's also undercrossings, and in this particular alignment or design, pedestrians and bicyclists would travel under the light traffic and over these structures. But as you can see, some of the downsides to these structures are they become long tunnels depending on the length, and dark spaces, as well as depressed areas that collect runoff and could become flooded. So to mitigate for that, there's additional costs for drainage facilities, drainage pumps to clear the flooding from these structures. So other considerations include real estate and utility impacts. So we looked into a design that would avoid as many impacts as possible. So for instance, in this picture, this is off of Highway 20 here, and there's a billboard that could potentially be impacted, as well as some overhead utilities that would ultimately could not be avoided to fit the overcrossings. But the cost for these impacts were included in the right-of-way cost in the estimate. So all these preliminary considerations were included in our estimates and presented to the public in the initial preliminary design that we presented, and the additional feedback received from the public was also taken in consideration to grade the different alternatives, the overcrossings, the undercrossings, and the different connections to and amenities to adjacent parcels or adjacent streets. Throughout the year, the team prepared or presented at several public events. For instance, here back in May last year, the team presented at the farmers market, where it was the first chance that the public got to see some of the preliminary design and initial ideas. And I got to say that it was pleasant to see all the positive feedback and excitement from the public to hear that this was actually happening. So there was a lot of a great impact, a great positive feedback and support from the public, and people willing to provide their opinions and their preferences or feedback of what they would like to see on the path that we were able to include on the estimates and the preliminary design, so that it's accounted for and the people get something that they're looking forward to using. So during the summer, we were able to attend the Sutter County Fair and present some of the initial feedback that we received and update some of the preliminary design, as well as provide additional information to the public. Yes.
We're stopping this? Okay. Man, we're dropping off like flies. Okay.
So through the mayor, my recommendation is, now that we have the recusal that he just noticed when the picture came up there, thank you very much, Councilmember Boomgarden, for moving so quickly on that. We no longer have a quorum for this particular item. So my suggestion is we continue it to the next meeting so that we can have a different mix. I apologize to the consultant at the last minute change and for any members of the public who may have come here to speak on this item. But because we no longer have a quorum, because we have a recusal for transparency, this will be moved to the next meeting.
Sorry about this, gentlemen. So it looks like we're going to move this to the next council meeting.
No worries.
So thank you for your time.
I could get Ben up there for a second. Ben, do we have a deadline that we need to adopt this by?
Yeah, I'm concerned if we could pause and maybe talk with council a little bit more about this. There is a funding deadline requirement that it needs to be adopted by March 1st to meet our funding requirement. And so I just want to, this is a feasibility study that affects the citywide. And so I don't know if there's any opportunity that's in consideration on how it affects the parcel.
Thank you, Ben. There is an exception called the public generally. And that is if a project generally affects the public for, like you're replacing sewers throughout the city, for example, that affects just about everybody and your council members can participate in that. My understanding from this particular item, however, is we were doing a feasibility study along a certain corridor. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we are analyzing it across the city, citywide. It begins on the west edge of the city limits and continues to the east boundary. It does go along a subject property, but it is a citywide impact.
Do you believe that corridor affects, and I'm trying to find a way is what I'm doing here, folks, is why we're having this conversation. Do you believe that corridor affects more than like, say, 10% of the city?
Absolutely.
Properties? Does it affect more than 10% of the properties within the city, would you say, within 500 to 1,000 feet of it?
It doesn't touch 10% of the properties, no, but it is really truly a regional path for the city.
This is the problem. I'm so sorry. This is the problem we have with conflicts that come at the last minute. They're so factually intense and there's so many exceptions to them. My suggestion is if we have a time limit, the safer practice is to keep the recusal for tonight and set a special meeting.
Right.
You have to the city council and get this item done so that you can meet your March 1st deadline.
Yeah, we'll work with the state and see what we could do with the recusal.
Can we fit that in with the city to do a special meeting for that? City manager?
We'll coordinate council's calendars to figure out when we can do a special meeting.
Okay. All right.
So just to be clear,
and we'll check first. I don't want to have a special meeting. If we could postpone it, we'll work with the state funding and see if we could push it to the first meeting in March.
Alrighty. And just one more item again. Thank you to everyone who's your flexibility. We want to make sure we're completely transparent in these sorts of things. And so if that's okay, Mayor, we will move to the next item.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and move this agenda item 11 to next city council meeting. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving along to agenda item 12. Professional services agreement with Smart Marketing and Public Affairs for Revenue Measure Consulting Services. This is presented by Diana Langley, our city manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So before I start this item tonight, I just want to note that we're at the very, very early stages of evaluating a revenue measure. And so as I go through this presentation, just keep that in mind that we're at the early stages. So beginning in 2019, the City Council has participated in a budget ad hoc group to evaluate the city's budget. So for the last 4 years, Council has designated a budget ad hoc committee that's been comprised of 2 council members. And at budget time, which we get into about now, and then we meet with the budget ad hoc in April, those 2 council members review the department requests for the operating budget, the capital acquisitions, personnel requests, the capital improvement program. In addition, they review projected expenditures and revenues for the current year budget. And through that process, they have gone through the budget to try to streamline the budget and then also make sure that we are budgeting according to need and then also that in the correct accounts. On December 20th, 2022, City Council designated a revenue ad hoc comprised of Vice Mayor Harris and Councilmember Boomgarden to evaluate a potential revenue measure for the city, as well as evaluate other opportunities to increase revenues within the city. So during the month of January, staff met with Councilmember Boomgarden and Vice Mayor Harris, and we reviewed the city's 5-year fiscal outlook, the road plan that looked at the city's current condition of the roadways, which you don't have to look at a plan to look at that. You can just drive around and see how terrible the roadways are. We also heard about priorities from Chief Alexander and Chief Baker, and then also discussed forming a citizen ad hoc because the revenue ad hoc committee really wants the feedback and participation from the citizens. And so it's at that point in time that we said, okay, if we're going to move forward with these discussions, let's bring somebody on board to assist with this process. Nobody on staff has experience with revenue measure or going through this process. And so staff obtained a proposal from Smart Marketing. As part of this review, it's clear that the city's revenues are not projected to be sufficient to maintain fiscal sustainability, address public safety's priorities, and then also address the roads. If you go back to 2019, early in that year, we did a transportation workshop in which it was, we evaluated the roadways. And at that point in time, the cost to maintain the roads in their current condition was about $7.3 million annually. To increase the condition to what would be considered the low end of good, it was about $8 million annually. If you fast forward to 2023, that price has gone up significantly. To maintain the current condition, which has declined since 2019, it's about $13 million price tag on an annual basis. And that's not just for a couple of years, that's ongoing for many years. And if you want to increase it to the state average pavement condition index of 65, which is still just fair, it's not good, that's about a $20 million price tag. When you add that to the public safety priorities, there's a lot associated with that. And so as the revenue ad hoc, we talked about their opportunities to increase revenues, one of which is a potential revenue measure for within the city limits for the November 2024 election. The revenue ad hoc, as I've mentioned before, this council is very data-driven, very methodical, wants to know what the process is going to be, how are we going to get there? And so they recommended approaching it with that methodical manner. And like I said, getting somebody on board to assist us with that process. So staff obtained a proposal from Smart Marketing and Public Affairs of Yuba City to provide revenue measure consulting services for November 2024 revenue measure. And it's broken into 4 phases. So phase 1 is assessment, strategy, and message development. Phase 2 is communicating the need. Phase 3 is building understanding, and phase 4 is qualifying the ballot measure. And when I talk about these phases, the city can't advocate for a measure. The city can only do an education process as to why additional revenues are necessary. So we're approaching it from that standpoint. And as noted, the timeframe goes from March of 2023 through August of 2024. Why August of 2024? Because that would be the deadline to put a measure on the November 2024 ballot. So the term of agreement, as noted, is 18 months. It commences upon execution of the agreement and shall continue until the scope of work is complete or until the city opts not to pursue a November 2024 revenue measure, or until either party suspends the performance of the services or terminates the agreement by giving 15 days prior written notice. So with that, there have been quite a few questions that have come up from a variety of sources. It's come from staff, it's come from the Appeal Democrat, it's come from the public in terms of, why is the city doing what we're doing? Did we issue an RFP? If we didn't, why didn't we issue an RFP? Is there a conflict between council and Smart Marketing, as Smart Marketing ran the campaign of 4 of the current council members? And so I want to address these questions. The other thing is, as I'm going through this, I fully invite council to interject on any of these responses. Feel free to interrupt me, and I'll go through this. So why didn't staff follow? So first of all, staff did not follow a bidding process in this, but we have fully complied with all of the city's procedures and all legal requirements. And so why didn't staff follow a bidding process for these services? And so per the municipal code, section 2-6.14, which is exemptions from competitive bidding, it states that competitive bidding requirements for purchase and sales over the limits set forth in section 2-6.08 may be waived when the council determines that it is in the best interest of the city to do so. The conditions authorizing waiver of the competitive bidding requirements may include, and it notes, professional services, of which this is a professional services contract. The other thing is that, many candidates and the other local agencies within the Yuba-Sutter area have utilized local professionals for elected related and marketing activities, including Smart Marketing and Public Affairs, who's well known in this area. With Smart Marketing and Public Affairs, they guided Yuba County through Yuba County's Measure K process, which was a revenue measure. It was a contested revenue measure, and it prevailed. And so they have experience with this specific type of project. The other thing is that they're familiar with the local community. One of the things that we evaluate is, as we are looking at doing an RFP, is what are going to be the evaluation factors? What are you going to score proposals based upon? With this type of work, one of the things that we would base it upon is the knowledge of the local community. What is the knowledge of the local political climate, the local community, and the proposals would be scored heavily based upon that factor. Smart Marketing is familiar with the local community. They have experience helping a local agency with their revenue measure, and they were successful with that revenue measure. So any council input on that item?
Sure, I'd happy to, as part of the ad hoc committee. This question about, and I'll just call it sole sourcing. It was one that we definitely spent some time considering, because it would, we knew that it would propose or bring up an issue in regards to why would we do this. I think Diana did a very good job of articulating what the ad hoc committee, comprised of Councilman or Vice Mayor Harris and myself, considered. We had a lot of data from a 2018 study already that we had commissioned with the Lou Edwards Group. We had a lot of data that the county had shared with us when we were talking with them. And we had a fair amount of data from recent activity going door to door in regards to, okay, what are the issues out there? So the real concern is, okay, how do we engage the public? And I believe that, our effort here, and one of the reasons why we were not a participant in the last measure, was that we felt like we owed it to the citizens of Yuba City to be as transparent and open as possible. As Diana mentioned, cities aren't marketing agencies. Cities aren't agencies that, have a true mission of getting out, and how do you effectively do that? So we seek professional help when we need that. And Smart Marketing, with the history, provides that level of professional help. there'll be more I'll be talking about as we go down through these bullets, but I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Is there a conflict of interest between council members and smart marketing? I'm going to direct this question to the city attorney.
Thank you very much. And as you can tell from the last item, we take disclosures and recusals very, very seriously. And we do here. And there's two items that would be primarily involved. One is what's called the Political Reform Act, or the PRA. And the other one is what we call Government Code 1090 conflicts. And the state legislature has basically said, hey, if you're a decision maker, you shouldn't be making money off the deal. You shouldn't be having a financial interest in the deal. That's not in the public interest. But there is a difference between are the decision makers having a financial interest in something and what I call the Subway rule. And that is, just because you've eaten at Subway in the past and done business there doesn't mean that you own a Subway or work at a Subway. There's your difference. If any one of these board members owned or worked at a Subway, they would have a financial interest. Merely because you go there and buy a sandwich does not disqualify you. And so there has been some questions as, well, is this a legal conflict of interest because some council members have used the service of this business in the past? And the answer is no, no legal conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. I would add that, again, in a previous campaign, I used a company called Sapphire Marketing. In my last campaign, I used a company called Smart Marketing. I paid for those services. I had to pay for those services. I'm not receiving any financial benefit by selecting Smart Marketing for this particular project. I need to make that abundantly clear. The other thing that continues to be alleged out in the unknown, anonymous people in the community is that there is somehow some connection to Smart Marketing and the decisions I make at this dais. I do not have an ongoing relationship with Smart Marketing. I don't have her or her husband or any other participant in that company on retainer. So the false narrative out there needs to stop, at least on my part.
Here. I have no financial interest in Smart Marketing. Smart Marketing supplied a service to me, just as our attorney said. I go to a gas station every day and buy gas. I use the service. I have received no input from these people other than trying to get elected and using what their knowledge was to get elected. The false narrative, as Councilman just said, needs to stop. There is nothing. I'm very transparent. I didn't get on this council to line my pockets whatsoever from anybody. I owe no one a thing other than the contributors they gave me, and I would recuse myself the minute they came up and started to try to do business with this city, and that's my responsibility. So you can be assured that you don't know me if you think somebody's guiding me to make decisions. It doesn't work that way with this gentleman right here. So just so that you know that no financial interest in whatsoever in Smart Marketing. So thank you.
Well said, council member. And I'll just add to what's already been said. For those of you that remember way back in 2016, I ran and no representation. I just kind of threw it at the wall and did the best I could. And I got close, but I lost. And I figured, well, that's that. And 2018 rolled around, and I opted not to because there was 9 people that ran that year. And but in 2020, when it came back around again, I said, you know what, maybe this time I'll take it a little bit more seriously. And I asked around town, and I said, well, who's the company to talk to? And it turned out to be Smart Marketing. And so there's been concerns even after I came on council from council people that who I'm sitting next to, that there might be some members in the community that had some kind of influence on my decisions. No, my decisions are my decisions, and that's where it starts and that's where it ends. I would like to point out also that this council did entertain briefly before we started talking about a revenue measure, we entertained briefly the idea of cannabis. It seems to work across the river, and so we held a purely informational meeting in this room, and the whole world showed up for it, and they said overwhelmingly no. So this council heard that loud and clear, and so I feel like we have exhausted at least most of our options, and which has brought us to where we are today. So thank you.
Right. What percentage of a sales tax is council considering? As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we're at the very, very early stages of this discussion. And so there hasn't been any type of decision as to the percentage. Now, we have talked about what a 1% would equate to. If it was within the city limits, that's approximately $14.5 million. But there hasn't been a discussion of this is what we would move forward with. Any comments on that?
Just echo that. I think that's to be determined. And I think that as we move through this process and be transparent and hold community meetings and share information, I think then we will be in a better spot to understand exactly what we would propose. And again, at the end of the day, the voter gets to decide whether they tax themselves or not. It's not that we get to impose a tax. The things that we're going to be discussing are going to be those things that we feel the public needs to know in anticipation and of not only a measure, but whether they vote yes or no on it.
Not being part of that ad hoc committee, I have not discussed it with anyone or had any opinions at this point because I'm not part of that ad hoc committee, which would make a quorum at that point. So I'm open. Let me put it to you that way.
All right. Will it be a general sales tax or a special sales tax? And what distinguishes that is the percentage approval. For a general sales tax, it's the 50% +1. For a special sales tax, it's a 2/3 majority. Again, we're at the very early stages. There is a need specific to public safety and roads, which could lend itself to a special sales tax. But again, the revenue ad hoc would like input from the citizen advisory group and the citizens.
One council person speaking totally in support of special taxes earmarked for specific things that we would be able to quantify and present to the voter. I'm leery of general sales tax, but again, as Diana mentioned, we're at the beginning of this. If the community felt like they wanted to go for a general sales tax, then that's what we'll listen to and we'll go forward with. But I, as one, have said this from the time that I ran the first time. If you're going to put a tax on me, I want to know where the money's going, and I want to know that it's going to stay here for that purpose.
Mayor, I would echo that as well. I'm not for, unless the citizens, I mean, this is going to be citizen driven. Your vote's going to make this happen or not. We can only drive the boat, but you got to put the gas in it. So I'm more of a special tax. General tax, this council could change in 4 years, and you go to general, and wow, no, we're going to go off on this new shiny object. So I'm all for a special tax as well.
So during this last election, obviously, you know, people were talking about Measure A, and I'll be honest. I mean, I voted for it. I saw value in it. I'm a citizen of Yuba City and Sutter County. I saw value in it, but in public or in social events, when the subject came up, it seemed to me that if there was an objection, there was one objection, and it was that it was a general tax, and it was unclear of where it was going to go. So yeah, I would be for something a little bit more specific. For example, first responders, public safety, and roads. That'd be my support.
All right. So why is the city seeking a revenue measure now when it didn't participate in Sutter County's Measure A? So I think this is a good question. And one of the things that I appreciate, last October, Robert Suma with the Appeal Democrat reached out to me, and it was related to an article about Sutter County's attempt to include Yuba City in Measure A. And he allowed me the opportunity to address the process how the city had been involved. And I noted in that interview that, the city has the need for the money. It's not that the need's not there. It was a matter of the city didn't have the chance to lay the groundwork as to why the money was needed. And so from a public perception standpoint, if we were to join in, the public would say, why is Yuba City joining in? What are they going to use it for? And we hadn't had the opportunity to be able to explain to the public and walk the public through the process of this is why. It wasn't a matter of, lack of need. And also the uncertainties of, what was happening with inflation and the economic times. But, the reason the city didn't openly participate in Measure A at that time was just a matter of the city hadn't had the chance to explain why it was necessary or would be necessary for the city. Anybody want to add to that?
Pretty much ditto. As a member of the group that was meeting with the county, we were having discussions, and I imagine that we will continue to have discussions on a tax sharing agreement. I'm not closing the door on anything. I don't think they've closed the door on anything. And like I mentioned at the forum, we have a discussion with them consistently about service delivery. I think Diana hit the nail on the head. The reason, I know one of the reasons I was reluctant to move forward is we had not had an opportunity to have the discussions with our citizens, the folks that were going to be affected by the tax. And their compressed time frame was one that wasn't going to allow us a lot of time to do that. And frankly, theirs is a general tax. And I think you just heard how I feel about a general tax. Again, I'm not slamming the door on anything over there. And in fact, we've had some informal discussions in regards to, okay, what's going on? And I expect that those may continue. I don't know why they wouldn't.
Well, I wasn't elected at the period that this was all going on. I did have an opportunity to speak on it at the forum that the chamber had at the time. And my consensus was, one, I wasn't for a general tax. The economic downturn and situations were going on in our state and our nation. And I basically said most agenda items go down in flames when they're half-baked. And this, I quote unquote, this was a half-baked idea from the county. And I want to work with the county. I live in this county, and I know their needs as well. Well, I don't know all their needs, but I know they have needs. And so, no, I'm not shutting the door on anyone. I would never do that to the rest of the citizens. I did mention, though, that it seemed a little lopsided, that 70% of the population and commerce comes from the city, and only maybe 30 or so comes from the county. And I thought the 50-50 split was a little lopsided at the time. So, but I am always open for conversations with our county representation. So you can always count on that from me.
Yes. So one of the committees that the mayor and the vice mayor and the chair and the vice chair sit on and meet monthly is the intergovernmental committee. And this is a monthly meeting where we talk about stuff like this. And so it's not like one against the other. I feel like there's communication, as Vice Mayor, Councilmember Boomgarden said. We're not going to close the door on anybody. We see the need. I attended two of the town halls that at the time Vice Chair Carm Baines had in his district. And I listened to the county's needs. I understood the county's needs. Unfortunately, through no fault of the county, those meetings really weren't really well attended. But yeah, I mean the need is there, and it's being heard.
Through the mayor, if I might, one of the things that Ms. Langley mentioned was the budget ad hoc committee, and a budget ad hoc committee was implemented, as she mentioned, in 2019. Over the time, it's evolved into a pretty in-depth, and I would say really in-depth the past year, line-by-line look at each department's operating expenditures and utilizing historical data, what they've been given and what they have spent. And one of the reasons we started this in 2019 was we wanted to make sure that as a council at that time, and it's carried forward through this council, is that our city departments are operating with budgets that are actual and factual. That process leads me to a level of comfort with that budget because I worked with it myself as a fire chief for 14 years. I know how it works. I know where you can put stuff and everything else. That budget is what it needs to be, and I don't want to say what it needs to be. It is as tight as you can make it right now. And that exercise needed to be done for me to stand in front of anybody and say, we need more revenue. That gives me a level of comfort. I believe it gives the council a level of comfort. And I think that that's an important point to make in this effort. What we're going to come up with the county is simply this. We have a lot of needs. If you drive on our roads right now, and we were benefited by 3 years of drought, if that makes any sense. Our roads didn't get trashed by the water intrusion. Take a look around town right now. It's horrible. And I think Dinah's going to talk a little bit about what those road numbers are, or I can right now. Our road number, just to get maintenance, is $13 million. What did she say a 1% sales tax brings in? $14.5 million. Okay. That's not even beginning to address things in public safety, such as homelessness, police, and fire protection. So you can see the difficulty that's going to exist when we sit with our partners, who also represent the city, by the way, as county supervisors, and say, look, how are we going to carve this up? They have a need. I don't doubt that they have a need. I know we have a need. So what are we going to do? And that's when we start talking about, participating together with each other, we're going to have to figure that out. We're going to have to figure that out.
All right. So the next question, if the revenue measure is successful, will the city share revenues with Sutter County? I think that the council members have addressed that question. And then importantly, why isn't the city discussing reducing services or staff to reduce costs? And so I think it's important to note, so of a $52.5 million general fund budget, police makes up $20 million and fire makes up $13 million of that budget. So between police and fire, they're close to 2/3 of the general fund budget. And so any significant reduction in expenditures would impact public safety. And if you try to keep public safety whole, then what you're really looking at is your next two largest budgets are community services, which is parks and recreation, and then also public works, which portion of public works is funded through streets and roads that comes through the general fund. And so there's not, as Councilmember Boomgarden noted, as participating on the budget ad hoc, there's not a lot of places to look for the type of funding that's required to address the roads. All right, any additional comments on that?
A comment through the mayor. A comment was made by Nate Black from the county at a recent leadership training that the chamber put on. And his comment was, maybe we should be going after the state to recover the money that was supposed to be given to the cities through gas tax and road tax. I don't disagree with that, but what's the likelihood of us being able to get that money in this current environment? I think it's not, I don't believe it to be very possible. So at the end of the day, what are we going to do? And this is why we have a revenue ad hoc committee. This is why We're going to be going out to the public, and we're not ringing the bell and saying, oh, look, tomorrow we're going to do this or going to do that. We're out ahead. We're out ahead and we're being transparent. We're out ahead being transparent, and we're going to seek input. And that's the purpose of where we're at today. And yeah, that's good.
I'd just like to add on. I'm sorry, I jumped that. I'd just like to add on to that. I've lived in this community my whole life, and it seems like I can remember as a kid, it's almost like we're hardwired to go shop other places, Sacramento, Roseville, Rockland didn't even exist back then. But if you do that now and you get that receipt for that, whatever you buy, goods and service, you look at the very bottom of that receipt, and it says 8.5%, 9%, maybe even more. And so these are opportunities that unfortunately are leaving our area, and it's money, it's going elsewhere that could be going to reinforce our roads, to make us a safer community. It's just an opportunity that's being missed. You look at the last election cycle, Chico is an example. They passed a 1%. It works out to be 24 to 25 million a year, no sunset. Calusa, they had a Measure A as well, and then the list goes on and on. This is all public information you can find online, but it's no, I think I've said enough. Go ahead.
And you gave me some numbers about the cities our size and how many are not participating in moving up their sales tax.
Right. So Yuba City is one of 7 cities in the state of California with a population of over 50,000 that does not have a revenue measure. One of 7. The other cities are Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, Redding, Camarillo, Rockland, and Hanford. And just because some of these cities don't have a revenue measure in place doesn't mean they don't have other revenue generating items in place, such as a utility users tax or, something similar to that. And so one of 7 cities in California with a population of greater than 50,000 that does not have a revenue measure in place.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on to the fiscal impact. So the total consulting fee is a not to exceed $135,000, and that's based on a base consulting fee of $7,500 a month for the full 18 months. So that's from March of 2023 through August of 2024. In addition, includes a budget of $40,000 for hard costs. So that's print materials, advertising, that type of thing. So for a total budget not to exceed of $175,000. There's $100,000 in the city manager's budget for professional services. I'm requesting a supplemental appropriation of $75,000 from one-time Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds, of which we have approximately $6 million remaining. And the question was, why aren't you planning to use the $6 million to assist with the revenues? And the response is we are. As we move forward, if a November 2024 revenue measure were successful, the city would not see a full year of revenue for that until fiscal year 25-26. And so we're talking over 2 years from now that we would start to generate revenue from that measure. So alternatives are to direct staff to issue a request for proposals for these services and obtain proposals from other consultants. Do not proceed with pursuing a potential November 2024 revenue measure and dissolve the Revenue Ad Hoc Committee. Provide direction to the Revenue Ad Hoc Committee to explore other opportunities to generate revenues. There are other opportunities. There's parcel tax. As the mayor said, there's cannabis sales. We did get responses from the public about that. There's utility users tax. The thing with all of those other options is they still require the vote of either the property owner or the public. So you're still in the same process, or direct staff to reduce the scope of services. And so the recommendation is written here. Basically, it's to adopt a resolution to award a contract for revenue measure consulting services to Smart Marketing and Public Affairs for the $175,000, and then also approve a supplemental appropriation of $75,000 from ARPA money. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay, we do have some comments, written comments from the public on this item. The first one is from Cash Gill.
Ashgill, 1737 Vintage Court, Yuba City. I don't even know where to begin. First of all, thank you for taking my calls and hearing my concerns on this matter. I've been on the council for 8 years, was mayor of the city of Yuba City twice. This is the first time that I'm seeing where the council members making their own decisions without doing an RFP. I know our attorney explained conflict of interest, but it could also be, you know, quid pro quo. Depends on how you want to define it. In my opinion, you guys are not transparent. You're awarding this without an RFP. The two ad hoc committees got together. I visited with several of you on several occasions, and you said the city's doing really well. We got plenty of reserves. Now, all of a sudden, after the election, you have a meeting, and after the meeting, now all of a sudden we find out the city's shortfall in potholes and going to need $12 million. My recommendation, taking a look at this, you guys should table this. You should put this out for an RFP, regardless of who gets it. You should bring the county of Sutter to the table right now. You should bring the city of Live Oak to the table right now. It's one community that's taking a look at it, not one stepchild versus the other stepchild looking at it. You guys talk about data. Let me just give you some real data. As a banker and as a farmer, let me tell you guys, and I don't know if you know this, this is the worst time for the farming community. Walnut prices are all-time low. Almond prices are at an all-time low. And so you're going to go to a lot of the farming community that buys the tractors, buys the chemicals, buys the trucks in this community to come out and support this tax. I'm definitely not going to support it the way it's presented right now, and I'll make sure all my friends aren't supporting it because you guys aren't being transparent. We as a community, we're already paying 2 levy taxes right now. We're paying 2 Yuba College taxes right now, and we have a Yuba City unified sales tax for the stuff that we've done. How much more are you guys going to keep taxing without being transparent coming through this? Instead of trying to unite the community, I honestly feel that you guys are dividing this community. And I think one of you made a comment that it's 70%. Bring them to the table. When the county started this earlier, I know all of you guys were saying, well, they didn't ask us. They didn't ask us. And at that point in time, it was a 50-50 split. As soon as it got done, now it's like who can go to the top first and try to get the most amount of money. If you want to have this tax passed, if you want to have this community united, I urge you guys to table this, put that at the RFP, bring in community members, community advisory committee, and bring the county and the city of Live Oak on board to do that. That's what I asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker card. Our next speaker card is from John Buckland.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak.
I'm so sorry.
John Buckland.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Buckland. Is the speaker on? I want to make sure everyone can hear you. Could we wait a moment? I want to make sure everybody can. And I'm sorry, Mr. Buckland. I just want to make sure everyone can hear you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I now have a green light, apparently. Again, thank you, Mayor. John Buckland, 1478 LeGrand Avenue, also a business owner and also a distributor, international distributor of a product. I can tell you that straight up, if we're looking at a sales tax measure, this needs to go out to an RFP. Nothing against Crystal or Smart Marketing or anything else, or against any of the current council members, having done business with her. That's not the issue. The issue is transparency and fairness, especially for our public. These are public dollars that we're going to spend. We just saw a whole bunch of, can't even talk about it, but what item number 11, the millions of dollars that want to go forward on a pet project. We don't need that. We need our roads fixed. I mean, Mr. Boomgarden brought it forward. SB1, how do you get there? Well, self-help. Self-help tax is how you get matching funds under SB1. So if you want to get the state of California that passed in 2017, SB1, and you want a piece of those billions of dollars that they have available, you can get it. But you have to do it the right way, and you have to be funded through a tax measure to be able to get there. And it has to be a specific tax measure. It cannot be a general tax measure. It has to be for self-help. So I encourage you to look at a lot of things. I would toss this thing tonight and start all over again. I do agree with Mayor Gill that it really needs to be looked at from Sutter County, Yuba City, and Live Oak as a collective group. It affects all of us. And in my businesses, when I sell in California, I have to collect the tax. There's some other states. There's 16 other states that I'm selling to right now that I have to collect a tax on to be able to put out a product. When I go on international shipping, I'm paying a tax. This digs in. Every tax that you talk about digs into our pockets. As a private small business owner, it hurts. Every penny hurts. And when I have to collect that and retain it and report it, you think that I'm just passing it along? No, it takes staff work. We have to do accounting. We have to do our due diligence to make sure that we're paying the state of California and those other 16 state jurisdictions that we sell into, and different countries being Canada, Mexico, Panama, all the way down into South America. I have a very large swath of distributorship. So I thank you. I really encourage you to look at this, go out to an RFP, do the right thing, and let's get this out and open this thing up transparently for everybody so we know what we're doing. And then let's include all of our community together. I thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. We have a speaker card from Jim Whitaker.
I guess I got the green light, so I'm on, right? I am Jim Whitaker. I live in Sutter County. So, Honorable Mayor Kirchner and Honorable City Council members, I first want to start off with giving you guys kudos because, you know, obviously a lot of people don't know you have a tough job. And your leadership throughout the years and trying to make Yuba City a quality place to live, I think is remarkable. So I wanted to start out with that. Secondly, I would want to say that regardless of the fact that of what I believe, I am still going to be a supporter of your 1% sales tax. All right. And I just want each one and every one of you to know that. I've worked with Smart Marketing, Crystal Martin. I've worked with Sapphire Marketing, Carrie Houck. Both businesses are reputable businesses, remarkable businesswomen as well in this community. My biggest thing is I look at the optics of this whole thing. And so perception being reality, and reading the article today in the newspaper and hearing public comments, it just doesn't look good. It's not a good way to start out. You know, if you're looking for a 1% sales tax, it's just not a good way to kick this thing off. I would personally like to see all of you support going out to an RFP. I know I listened to Ms. Langley that it's not, it's within your policy. You don't have to go out for an RFP. As a supervisor, I've always asked department heads, and I'm sure you've asked department heads to go out for an RFP on a lot of their projects. And so what it does, it just keeps an equal playing field for all businesses. This sets a bad precedence. If you're granting Smart Marketing this contract, what it says to other businesses is that they're going to want the same thing. And how do you justify that? After you give this to Smart Marketing, people are going to say, "Wait, I want to be exempt, from your RFP as well." So currently, you know as well as I do that in this country, there's just a big mistrust of government, and this goes along with it. You want to be transparent. You want to be responsible with the taxpayers' money. I believe by utilizing an RFP, that would suffice everybody's belief that, hey, it was done fairly. Currently, you're looking at a contract from March of 2023 to August of 2024. Well, after that contract's done, what happens to September of 2024 and October 2024 when those absentees haven't even gone out yet and your consultants is already done? So something for you to consider, to look at. I fully agree with the past two mayors that, that we should be looking at, and I know you're in preliminary stages right now, but you should be looking at partnering with Sutter County as well as the city of Live Oak. But I think, I have confidence in each and every one of you that you'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker card is from Richard Cray.
Yes, my name is Richard Cray, 2160 Live Oak Boulevard here in Yuba City. And I want to agree with the gentlemen that have preceded me. They've all spoken eloquently about your lack of transparency. And even though each of you has elucidated reasons why you don't think that this might appear to be a conflict of interest, trust me, it appears that way. That's the lack of transparency, I believe, that was spoken of. Now, I agree that you might want to get together with Sutter County and the city of Live Oak to do this measure in one large effort, because I think that you'll find that you might be successful that way. And I want to congratulate you on recognizing the need for this, because so many people during the lead up to the vote on Measure A opposed it without really thinking about where are we going to get the funds that we need to operate the city, to operate the county. So thank you for having the foresight to recognize the need for this. I just urge you to table this tonight and seek an RFP and work with the county and the city of Live Oak as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we have a speaker card from Sharon Foote. Sharon Foote.
Hello, my name is Sharon Foote. I reside at 1461 Thomas Drive in Yuba City. A couple of comments I'd like to make. I haven't been a city council member. I've not been a board of supervisor member, but I am a resident of Yuba City in Sutter County, and I enjoy my county and I enjoy my city. And I can understand where you might feel that we need more monies, and I don't disagree that we need monies in our city and our county. Going back though, you just gave away a parcel of land that a farm owner is going to make a development and make money. And I think that's unfortunate that you decided you'd give him that parcel and let him do what he wants to do with it. On this particular measure, I think you need to advertise the bidding process for this particular evaluation of our city. And it's not a lot of money, but still at that, it's a matter of transparency and letting the people of Yuba City and Sutter County know that you are looking out for their interests. You can tell me all the things you want to tell me about, oh, it's not a conflict of interest, even though I use that particular business for my campaigns. Okay, maybe so. But we have other entities in our community and the surrounding area that could provide the same services and should have an opportunity to use the bidding process. The last item is Measure A, I felt was well done. I don't understand why the city of Yuba City and Sutter County could not go together. You comment about how well you work together in our government, and yet you couldn't get together and come up with Measure A and B, or whatever you want to call it, to serve our community and our county. And so I would hope that Sutter County would be interested in talking to us as a city and the city of Live Oak to put this together as one package. I think it's very important. I'm not sure it'll pass one way or the other, but I think you need to be transparent with our community and really tell them what's going on. And thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this item? Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for comments.
Jim stated it, Mr. Whitaker, perception is reality. Whether or not we are legally in our grounds of what we're doing, it's perceived as being wrong. And I get that totally. And this is so important to our community. Getting off to a bad start of not having it, what you perceive as not being transparent, concerns me greatly. There is no conflicts, and I will state it again and again and again. However, I'm a citizen. I'm a business owner too, pays those taxes. I figured it out the other day. I have to work 86 hours a day or 86 hours a month at $15.50 an hour to pay my property tax. I'm a property owner just like all of the rest of you. I don't like paying those taxes, but it's a need. The state of California, you have to realize we're in a rural community. We get table scraps. Who runs this state? Los Angeles and San Francisco. Whatever goes there is what we get left over. But I am very, very, very concerned about getting off to a good start with this because it is so important to this community. My road is 53 years old in front of my house. It's not there any longer. I want it to be there. So I get what you're saying about the transparency. There's not any lack of transparency, but there's a perception of that, and that bothers me immensely. So that's my comments, gentlemen.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Pasquale.
No, I have had conversations with some of the folks who spoke here tonight, and certainly hear their concerns. And I never discredit them because those who did reach out to me, I value their opinions and respect them as well. As a leadership isn't always tidy. And sometimes as an elected official, we are elected to represent and make decisions. And we certainly don't take that lightly. I know I don't. But there comes times when you have to sit back and go, okay, what have I heard? And where am I wanting to go for the city that I have spent a lot of time in? And with that, to me, I think, as Diana mentioned, we're at the beginning of this. So to suggest that we're not going to engage the citizens or we're not going to do this, that's not true. There's no conflict of interest. We have a provider in smart marketing who I have a high level of confidence because of the past track record that I'm not aware at this time anyway of anyone else locally who has to do that. There are firms, and our friends at the county engaged with those firms to handle their measure. I choose to keep my money local. I was a business owner. I was a business operator. And I take to heart the fact that my family and I live here and will be affected by a potential tax. I know what I feel the need is. And for that, I would support the resolution that staff has presented.
Hey, thank you. So this is one of those tough ones. As Council Member Pasquale said, sometimes it's all about perception, and it's definitely in this case. Things that I took under consideration, which was said before, is keeping it local. Our counterparts in their measure chose to go elsewhere. I'd like to keep our money local. I do like the fact that in the wording of this agreement, there's an escape clause for both parties, and I do appreciate that from staff. And lastly, the RFP question, and I've been getting that a lot. And what I did was I thought about if that question came up with the county when they attempted to pass Measure A, and so that was these items were part of my thought process. So, if the council doesn't have any more questions on this or comments, I'm ready to accept action on this.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Move to approve staff's recommendation. Adopt a resolution awarding a professional service agreement to Smart Marketing Public Affairs, Yuba City, California, for revenue measure consulting services in an amount not to exceed $135,000 for base consulting fees plus $40,000 for other hard project costs, for a total not to exceed $170,000, subject to immaterial modifications by the city manager upon approval of the city attorney as to legal form, with the finding that it is in the best interest of the city, and approve a supplemental appropriation of $75,000 from one-time Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds to account number 1305-62701, city manager budget professional services.
Councilmember Boomgarden, that was $175,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Boomgarden. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Just so you know, in order for this item to pass tonight, there must be 3 affirmative votes. If there are not 3 affirmative votes, the motion does not pass. So if I note that there are not council members here, one of the options may be to continue the matter if there are not 3 affirmative votes.
So, since I can't second it myself,
you can second yourself.
I don't have a third.
What was that?
We need 3.
But you need 3 votes. So if
Yes.
you were to second it and it was a 2-1, it just wouldn't pass, is what it wouldn't have.
So the option is to shelve it for another meeting?
You could continue the item to the next meeting, or you could second the item and then have a formal vote. And then if the resolution didn't pass, then you could decide at that point whether or not to continue it.
Okay, so I'm going to motion for this to be continued to the next city council meeting?
Yes, you can make that motion.
Yes.
There needs to be a second, however.
So I'm going to make a motion that we shelve this for the next city council meeting. Do I have a second?
I have to rescind my motion, correct?
No, you can have up to 3 motions on the floor at any one time.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. So that's going to get moved to the next city council meeting, correct?
There has to be a vote of 3 council members to support that motion.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to move this item to the next city council meeting. I've got first and second, and do a roll call on this, correct? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
Okay, just to be clear for the record, it was a 3-0 vote to continue to the next meeting.
Correct.
Already, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Future agenda items. Future agenda items. This is an opportunity to discuss with the city manager about items that came up late in the meeting this evening that you would like to have brought back to council at later date. Do we have any comments from the public? Okay. Reports and communication. The following reports and communication items are provided by council for the council's information. No action can be taken on items under this section unless the council agrees to include it on a subsequent agenda. Number 14, city manager's report.
Great, thank you. Sorry for that delay. So I just want to note that Ashley Potochnik, who's our development liaison, had a You Can with Yuba City Shop Talk for professionals last Wednesday at the Dancing Tomato. And there were approximately about 15 local businesses that participated. And some of the questions that, came up is, does the city have a checklist if I want to start a new business? And the answer is yes. And it talks about the different licenses and approvals that are required. She also talked about our new software program, Open Counter, that we'll be implementing. Ashley and the mayor will be on 93Q tomorrow morning to, again, talk about You Can with Yuba City. Also next Tuesday at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers, we're going to have a community workshop on the proposed Merriman Village apartments. It is a proposed Habitat for Humanity affordable housing project, 217 units located on the vacant property on the east side of Walton Avenue. So I know there's been some discussion, confusion. Is this the property on the old Harrington property on the west side? No, it's not that property. That's a different project. This is the property on the east side. We welcome the public to come see what the proposed plans are, provide some feedback. Habitat will be submitting for funding applications under a couple of different programs, and that deadline's coming up in the April-May timeframe. And so this item will be coming before council for consideration. But it's 217 units is a significant amount. And with that, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, City Manager. Number 15, City Council reports. We're going to start off with Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you. Attended the Sabufka meeting, Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency. There is still ongoing work in regards to projects that involve the levee on the bypass. Not much to report at that meeting. We did do a lot of changing. I think Matt Conant now is the supervisor, and is the chairperson. Attended the Yuba City Unified School District as the liaison to the city, and there was a lot of information shared. Nothing of super note other than I think everyone knows we're intending to have a council meeting at the high school and to recognize the 100th class graduating from Yuba City High School. As Ms. Langley just mentioned, we have a meeting next Tuesday. This is a potential Project Home Key project at Merriman Village. This is on Walton Avenue. I hope people will come to and participate. I was not able to attend the Regional Housing Authority meeting due to illness. However, I do know that there was a property transfer that's going to continue to facilitate that senior housing down there adjacent to Richland Housing. Attended the Chambers Gala where our local businesses were recognized. It's a good event, and it's always good, I believe, to recognize businesses that are successful within our community. And just want to make a mention. It's always amazing to me the amount of grant funding that the city is able to obtain, and for that, for the staff that's here or will listen, appreciate that. That does help tremendously when it comes to certain projects. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. Moving along to Councilmember Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Attended in your stead to the Transit Authority meeting and got the I had questions about Transit Authority back a meeting or so ago, and they basically hit it right on the nail. What I was asking about is they're refiguring how they deliver their services. which I found very, very enlightening. And that was a good meeting. I also went to the chamber event. There's 700 raucous people having a good time. And it's amazing what we have to offer in this little community when you start talking to the business owners. And I had a good time. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, unfortunately, I was out of town, or I would have really enjoyed going to that event. It's always a good event, and it seems like everyone had a good time. We mentioned earlier Sabufka. Councilmember Boomgarden pretty much covered most of that. I relinquished the big chair to Supervisor Matt Conant. Sure, he'll do a great job. We went over financials. Gilsizer, we're going through the elected chair process, and not much to talk about with that. Thank you, Councilman, for covering me for Yuba City Transit. It was announced, though, that they're going to host a virtual workshop, Yuba City Transit, with the possibility of offering passenger rail service north of Sacramento to Chico, with possible stops in Marysville and Plumas Lake. So stay tuned for that. I was invited to go to a ribbon cutting for Estes Tree Service. Good to see another business opening in town. I was invited to speak to the Republican Central Committee to get them up to date on what is happening in our city. Attended my first cap to cap, the flood cap to cap meeting to discuss strategies, or what we're going to discuss when we get to DC. And today I was at the police department welcoming our newly swearing in of a new records clerk, whose name is Nunes. Samantha. Yeah, I can't read my own handwriting. Chief thing. Samantha Nunes. And it's exciting because they're keeping it in the family. Her brother is a sworn officer as well, so that's nice to see. And thank you. We had an interesting meeting tonight, but I'm always impressed by our community's interest in participating in the process, and the decisions are not always easy ones. So I do want to thank our community for showing up and supporting this. I would like to close the meeting tonight in remembrance of someone our community lost recently. Tom Pfeiffer passed away on February 9th. If you don't know that name, Tom served 2 terms as county supervisor, also served 2 terms on city council, 2 terms as mayor as well, and had quite a career. But more notably, he was in this seat May 21st, 1976, during the bus crash. And so he declared a week of mourning for our community. I can't even imagine what that must have been. I was 7 years old when that happened. I can't even imagine what that must have been like to have been in that seat when that happened. So this evening, we're going to close in his honor. Thank you.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe, with lessons in person and personalized, instruments including guitars and amps, horns, strings for instruments, and a myriad of music and sound equipment. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe.